Today we're going to talk about Biden's watershed moment at the State of the Union, and I interview Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg about Marjorie Taylor Greene's State of the Union stunt, how dangerous the issue of IVF is going to be for the right, and some major wins that he's overseen on the infrastructure front. I'm Brian Tyler Cohen, and you're watching No Lie. Here's the deal. The State of the Union speech rarely, if ever, moves the needle. But here's my argument as to why it will this time. So the first reason is that Republicans do this thing where they lower the bar so much for Joe Biden that so long as he doesn't literally die at the podium, he'll exceed expectations. Like, they spend day after day, week after week, month after month explaining how he's in cognitive decline, how he doesn't know his own name, he doesn't know where he is, he doesn't know how to tie his shoes, that when it comes to the inevitability that he delivers a home run of a speech, like he did this past week, it's not only a win unto itself, it's not only a win to have delivered a home run of a speech, it also demolishes the right's talking points. And that's what happened here. Like, I've watched a lot of Biden's speeches. This was easily the strongest one. He was dynamic and energetic and strong, everything that Republicans have been promising their insulated viewers that he's not. In fact, right-wing media and Fox hosts have been claiming that he was on something, that he took something. Like, I don't know, I'll tell you what, if the suggestion is that Joe Biden was so dynamic that he must be on some upper, that's a win. Honestly, given what they say about him on a nightly basis, suggesting that the guy is on speed is about as complimentary as you could possibly imagine. So that's the first reason. The second is that he set up an agenda for himself and the Democrats more broadly that is hugely popular. He started the speech off with a defense of democracy in Ukraine, which is, again, hugely popular among all Americans, except, of course, for that pro-Putin faction of the GOP. He then went hard into a defense of IVF, again, hugely popular and imminently under attack by Republicans, most of whom support a bill that would make the Alabama law that endangered IVF into the national standard. Then economic issues, eliminating late fees and junk fees, making sure that billionaires don't pay a lower effective tax rate than their secretaries. And then, of course, an issue that we've spoken about a lot, the border. Biden called on Republicans to pass a conservative border bill that one of their own conservative senators negotiated. The line he used was, "We can fight about fixing the border, or we can fix it," which kind of gives the game away for Republicans because, as we've discussed, they don't want a solution, they want the fight. To them, the issue is more valuable as a cudgel to wield against Democrats than a solution would ever be, even though it is them who melts down over the five-alarm fire that is the dangerous border. Apparently, it's dangerous enough to complain about, just not dangerous enough to actually bother fixing. And if all of that is the platform the Democrats are going to run on between now and November, that is a winning formula. Democracy over autocracy is a winning message. IVF and abortion rights and reproductive care is a winning message. Continuing to tout the record economy that we're living through right now and the ways in which Democrats are working to deliver wins for regular people, especially, by the way, in contrast to what a Trump administration would be, which is basically just another round of tax cuts for billionaires and to start another trade war, that is a winning message. Now, granted, in fairness, we would be remiss not to at least give some airtime to the Republican argument in all of this.
First of all, we see you, we hear you, and we stand with you.
So yeah, for all those folks out there who are really into the whole Act 2 of a horror movie thing where the young innocent kids meet the weird Stepford wife lady who exists somewhere in the uncanny valley, at least they've got that going for them. I'm sure tens of people resonated with whatever that whole thing that Katie Britt did was. Really compelling stuff, though. So overall, I think this is a major win for Joe Biden on exactly the areas that he was weakest on. And I do think that for some voters who've been sucked into the right-wing media machine's narrative, this speech will work magic in terms of cluing them back into reality. Here's a preview of my interview with Pete Buttigieg. Marjorie Taylor Greene entered the chamber decked out in full Donald Trump regalia. What was your reaction to seeing that on a night like last night?
Yeah, I noticed it when we were coming in. And look, politics is always in the air at these things, but I don't think I've ever seen somebody in campaign apparel or with, campaign signage at a State of the Union address. I don't know what the rules are for members of Congress. That's for them to figure out. But look, I think it just emphasized the extreme politics of some House members and teed up the president to give a message that, while he was very straightforward, even aggressive about the contrast, at the same time, what he laid out was something that most Americans agree with on issue after issue after issue. And I think, some of those antics just bring that into relief even more strongly.
There was reporting that Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, had called for decorum prior to the night happening, which I guess was a little bit of a fool's errand when you run the Republican House conference. But there were interruptions nonetheless.
Yeah.
So what was the feeling like in the room? Was there and this has now become like a regular phenomenon. Was there a sense of like exhaustion with it from within the room?
It's happened often enough that I think when you're in the room, you're always kind of waiting for it or ready for it. But part of what we saw is none of that shook the president. And, all of that kind of goes on. There's chirping, there's chattering, there's even some just inappropriate interjections from the back benches, but none of it really took away from the message that the president was there to deliver. And again, I think a lot of that traces back to the fact that on issue after issue, whether it's infrastructure or whether it's women's right to choose, what the president had to say is deeply in line with what most Americans, if not necessarily most House Republicans, already believe.
With that said, there were fewer interruptions than there were in previous years. What does it say that Republicans didn't seem to test their luck in the same way that they did last year?
I think they kind of learned their lesson last time, right? It turns out, for all that they say about the president, he's pretty quick on his feet in those moments, and it's just not going to reflect well on them. And I think most of them absorbed that lesson. You did see some of them, I think, at one point, he kind of tested them on what seemed to be them doubling down on a commitment to tax cuts for the wealthy, for example, just in the kind of back and forth that was going on. It turns out, under President Biden, typically when that sort of thing happens, he comes out the better for it. I think most of them realize that.
Can you speak about just more broadly, I mean, you know what their attacks are over his age, over, there's these constant claims that he's in cognitive decline. Can you speak about what the State of the Union address did to kind of rebut those claims? Because a lot of those claims kind of exist and fester in darkness, like without the light of day, because they don't often actually see him and hear from him.
Right.
And so speak about what last night actually did to kind of neutralize those claims.
Yeah, I think what was most important was this. A lot of us who work with him have been saying, hey, this is somebody who is on top of his game, knows what he's doing, and we see that when we're in the room with him. And then there's been this weird counter discourse saying, oh, okay, how come that's only behind closed doors? And so tonight was a good chance to demonstrate, no, the same person we're talking about being in the room with, when there's 5 people in the Roosevelt room, is the person you saw in front of hundreds of people and speaking to tens of millions of people from the well of the House or the rostrum at the House of the Representatives. It's the same person with the same intensity, the same focus, the same strength, and the same clarity. And I'm glad he had a chance to demonstrate that last night in the speech.
To watch the full interview with Pete, click the thumbnail right here on the screen or check out the interviews playlist on my YouTube channel. You can also follow the link on the screen to listen to the audio version of this episode, and of course to see more of my content, the subscribe button's on the screen as well.